Howdy guys, this is my performativity assignment. I spent a pretty fair amount of time looking at my speech, and I thought there's some things I did really well and some things that I could improve on. As far as verbal linguistic behavior, I thought I had a pretty conversational tone in my speech. I thought I had good enunciation. I thought I understood what I was going to say. I thought I had it pretty well planned out. As far as nonverbal, I thought I had pretty decent eye contact. I thought I wasn't staring at my note cards or staring at the board. I thought I did a decent job of avoiding that, and that was one of my goals before this speech. However, I definitely think there's things that I can improve. So for one, I noticed that I kept looking at the ground. Might not have been looking at my note cards or the board, but I was looking at the ground, so I'd like to avoid that. Another thing is I noticed my hand gestures weren't above my waist. It was always around my pockets. It was just low hand gestures or out to the side. I thought I could refine those a little bit. And then another thing I noticed is that I was kind of touching my face. I noticed I was fidgeting my ring. I think that was just nervous behavior that I think I could eliminate because it could be distracting. So for part two of the assignment, I looked at two of my peers. Within my own group, I looked at Hallie, and within another group, I looked at George. And I thought both of them are really great speakers. So one thing Hallie did great as far as verbal, she was very casual speaking. She had a great tone, and it was slow enough for everybody to understand. Another thing, she had a very calm posture. She acted like it's no big deal, and I thought that was great. As far as improvements for Hallie, at times when she was referring to her visual aids, she would turn around and she would talk towards the board. It was still loud enough for people to hear, but she wasn't looking at her audience. So I think going forward, one thing she could try to do is look at the audience. But I thought she did a great job. So for George, I thought George did a great job too. One of his biggest strengths is it was a very casual, conversational tone. His posture was very laid back, again, like it was no big deal. I thought he had great hand gestures. They were very natural, and so that's one thing. I talked about my hand gestures weren't great. I'm gonna look at George for some advice. However, George could improve too. One thing I thought George could do is perhaps look less at his note cards. Maybe look at them and then talk. At times, it looked like he might have been kind of reading off of them. But other than that, I thought George did a great job. So for part three of the assignment, I'd like to reiterate what some of my no-nos were. So for one, I found myself looking at the ground instead of looking at my audience. I also found myself doing my hand gestures at my waist rather than above my waist. And then also, I found myself kind of fidgeting, whether by touching my face or touching my ring or something along those lines. So here's what I don't want to do, what I want to eliminate. According to REI, the major building blocks for training for a marathon are base mileage, the long run, speed work, and rest and recovery. And those are the things you can use. So that's what I don't want to do. Going forward, according to REI, the major building blocks of running for a marathon are base mileage, the long run, speed work, and rest and recovery. So in conclusion, I think this activity has been very helpful for me to identify some things that I can improve on going forward. Thanks for listening.